This article is pure 100% chutzpah. I would say it's 100% chutzpah and 20%. No, actually, I'd say it's 90%. How do I do the ratio? I'd say it's 60% chutzpah and 40% propaganda. How about that? I couldn't believe it when I read it. Besides the fact that it's total conflict of interest, they're basically writing a press release and an impassioned plea for their owner, Jeff Bezos. I don't want to hear that the Washington Post, what do they say? Their tagline, democracy dies in the darkness. Well, democratic systems, you want to call Russia TV an organ of the state for Russia? What the hell do you call this? This is literally writing a hit piece on Bernie Sanders and putting out facts that don't even make sense because they're not facts, basically to blow your owner. I mean, that's what this piece is. So, here we go. If there's a taxpayer subsidy going to the Walmarts and Amazons of the world, it is also a subsidy to their lower income customers because holding down labor costs enables them to sell goods more cheaply. Oh my God. All right, let me repeat. They are not, this is not, look, holding down labor costs enables them to sell goods more cheaply? No. It allows them to hoard more profits. Sell goods more cheaply. Let me tell you something, okay? If today Jeff Bezos across the board made all his workers at $15 an hour with decent benefits, okay? And Amazon, let's say they want to raise their price by 20 cents for everything. Some items more. Guess what? It would be negligible because people would have more money in their pockets. Guess what? Those workers probably wouldn't have to be on food stamps anymore because they're making $15 an hour. And don't get me wrong, $15 an hour in my opinion is too small, but you got to crawl before you can walk. So they're basically saying, oh, well, Amazon has to pay their workers slave labor because then they would have to raise the prices. No, if you raise the minimum wage, if you raise the Amazon workers, yeah, more people would have more money in their pockets. It's not complicated, but the Washington Post doesn't want their workers to, the Washington Post doesn't want the American people, especially Democrats, to actually look at facts and common sense. Thank you, Squirrel Lips, $1.99 in the super chat. Appreciate it. As a reminder, this is a super chat. If you're feeling super, it is my birthday tomorrow. I'm going to be live for my birthday too, but early birthday party, super chat. We're definitely hoping more people contribute to the GoFundMe. We had somebody contribute, Zachary, $150 while I was live, so thank you. Super chat, GoFundMe, keep it coming. So I want to read just a little bit more because I'm just astounded this was even printed. So they're saying that if there's a taxpayer subsidy, there is a taxpayer subsidy going to Walmart and Amazon. We are paying for their workers to have food stamps and Medicaid and subsidized housing so that Jeff Bezos could make $64,000 in 10 seconds. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Guess what? You just paid so Jeff Bezos could make $64,000. Not being dramatic, that's the truth. That is the truth. Quote, living wage requirements for government contractors, employer mandates for health insurance, or mandatory vacation and sick leave. There should be clear, broadly applicable minimum standards to prevent a race to the bottom in the labor market. Holy shit. And I'm not going to make you nauseous reading any more of this, but I want to make the point on this. Okay, so the progressive push to attack inequality to increase regulation of employers. Well, since the Washington Post apparently does not employ people who took economics or know about American history, let me give you a little lesson, Washington Post. So in the 1950s and the 1960s, the American economy was its most equal in history. Okay? Part of that was the post-World War II boom, but you want to know what the main reason that income inequality was fairly low? And that the average CEO made like 10 to 15 times more than their worker, not 250 to 300 times their average worker, and that parents and families could have 2 cars, one parent could work, another one they could take maybe a vacation once a year or so. Why do you think that was? Why do you think that was? Let me highlight. Let me highlight this. regulation of employers through labor unions. Employers had to pay a certain amount because either there was a union contract that said so, or private employers that didn't want their workers to push for a union matched the union rate. It's not complicated. So when you actually do, oh, I'm sorry, Jeff Bezos, I'm sorry, Bill Walton, put some rules and regulation on employers that actually make them have to treat their workers with human dignity, pay them and care about them so that they could feed their family and themselves, have heating in their home during the winter, have health care. Guess what? You have a more equal economy. But apparently the Washington Post doesn't understand that they say to attack inequality, not even understanding that the inequality is because we don't have these regulation of employers. And I'm sure they actually do understand this, but choose to be dumb about it. So if you've eaten lunch and you're not on an empty stomach, I'm putting the link in the chat here. Putting the link in the chat. That's the Washington Post, but I got it off a separate site. It's an article written by the Washington Post, but I got it off a separate site. Read that. It's astounding. And the reason I am reading that, the reason I'm even covering it, is because this type of propaganda, you're going to be seeing a lot more of it, especially if Bernie Sanders runs. But even if Elizabeth Warren runs, even if it's an actual progressive, the Washington Post, the New York Times, they are elites. They don't want the truth out there. They don't want common sense out there. They don't want the economic realities of the majority of Americans out there. That's why they are promoting this fallacy and this nonsense about, oh, the economy's booming and it's humming and all this nonsense. It is nonsense. It is not booming. I can promise you. So I will keep calling out the Washington Post, and I will keep calling out propaganda. Now, if Bernie Sanders put forward a policy that I thought had holes in it, I would say so. But I think this policy is right on the money. And you know what? The criticism to it has been, well, if this actually went through, then you're jeopardizing low-income workers because then Amazon won't be likely to pay and hire them if they have to pay for their food stamps. Enough. We don't need to fetishize business in this country to the point we do. What about the workers? Why are we so worried about, oh, it's a burden to Amazon and they'll have to make a little less money. So you're jeopardizing, they won't want to hire these workers if they have to pay their subsidies. Fuck Amazon and fuck Jeff Bezos and fuck the Waltons. No, we should be saying, well, because Jeff Bezos, Amazon, Walmart, Burger King, McDonald's, they got so rich and successful because of the conditions in this country. So here's the solution. Let's not talk about it in a way, well, they won't hire these lower income workers because they don't want to pay for their food stamps and subsidies. How about this? Well, they don't have to pay for their food stamps, Medicaid, subsidies if they just raise their wages. If they make, let's say they make $10 billion less a year. Is that really going to kill you? Is that going to kill Jeff Bezos? So that's the propaganda going on with the Washington Post. And Bernie Sanders has obviously been on the receiving end forever, but it's astounding to me, I get criticized sometimes, Jimmy gets criticized sometimes, a lot of progressive media get criticized sometimes as not real journalists because we're biased. What the hell do you call that? At least I'm honest about my views. They don't change the facts that I report, but at least I'm honest about my views. That was a shameful story.